Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about steps. What do I mean by that? Well, let's get into it. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a philosophical one. There are a few subscribers who have asked me, so Fredrik, how do you think about things? And apart from being very flattered that somebody actually has taken an interest in the way that I think about things, I also kind of find it's a difficult, as you can imagine, it's a difficult type of question to actually answer. How do you think? And I kind of go, okay, what do you mean? Well, how do I learn how to think in the correct manner about things and so forth? And see, the biggest tip I've given away is in another video where I talk about my secret method for learning problem solving. And basically the short version is that watch people solve problems over and over and over. That's the biggest tip. That's what I do. I watch tutorials on absolutely everything, and I read blogs about absolutely everything, even stuff I already know, because every time I see somebody solve the same problem, they will solve it in a slightly different manner, and every time that happens, I get a deeper understanding of how to solve the problem. You start learning pattern matching, or pattern recognition, if you will. But when it comes to mindset and so forth, in programming in general, I'd like to have, it's something that I do on a fairly regular basis, and I suppose that some people might be doing this as well. I've never talked to anybody who does it, but it has been very helpful, not just in programming, but in all aspects of my life, to have this way of thinking or this thought process. And it usually happens when, these days, it happens most of the time when I'm in the pool and I'm just swimming and then relaxing a little bit. So the mental exercise, or the thought, if you will, that I have is that I think about the steps. What do I mean by thinking about the steps? Well, I mean that I spend a great deal of time looking at things around me and so forth. That's usually how it starts out anyway. It starts out by just looking at, say, my pool. And I start thinking about all the steps that were needed in order for this pool to be here, and for me to be able to be in this pool swimming at this moment in time. All the things that happened up to that point. I start thinking about all the construction workers, the people working there. I start thinking about the different the industry and so forth, like everything that is required in order to make this moment possible. And that might be a little bit out there for you. I'm sorry about that. As I said, this is a little bit philosophical, but what happens is that I start thinking about, at least that's how I experience it, I start thinking about more than what I am seeing. I start to see things differently, because I've realized that I spend, especially as a youngster, most of the time I took everything at face value. It's usually the case you see with somebody who, let's take fitness for example. A lot of people will look at somebody with a really great body and say, and just be, and appreciate that great body and let that be the end of it. I appreciate somebody with a good body, not only because they're beautiful, but because I can see the steps up until this point. That's at least the way that I think about it. I know that the work that they have put in and the type of dedication it took to get to this point is massive. It's the same thing. It's the same reason why I very rarely criticize art, music, whatever you want to call it, because I look at the thing, and even if I don't like it, even if I'm not the sort of person who appreciates the thing that I'm looking at, I always do this. I always think about, what did it take to make it? What happened before? What were the steps for this moment that I'm having right now to even be possible? And at first, as I say, when I was a teenager, I could only see so far. And as I grew older, I've, at least that's the sensation I got, I felt that I could see more and more steps, and I could see different paths, and I could understand that there were so many different factors that played into making something the way it is. Let's take the tiling in the pool that I swim in. That tiling was created by a company full of people that I will never know. They probably have families and cars and living accommodations, all that stuff that you would expect. These people come to work, or they came to work to make these tilings. The company that is selling these tilings are made up by even larger amount of people, and it cascades outwards. In order for that company to even be able to exist, somebody had to build that company, that building. And that company started out somewhere as well. That company most likely started out as 1 or 2 people. They built it up, and do you see what I'm saying? It starts snowballing on you. You start to realize that there are so many things that are connected. There's so many steps, and there's no way I could ever consider all the factors, but I think it's a nice mental exercise. I really like it, and I've been doing it since I was, I think, 10 years old. You may not be surprised to hear that I used to play chess, and I'm not saying I was the best chess player in the world, but it was something that came very naturally to me. I love chess. I used to say, and this was me as a kid, I used to say that everything in life is like a chess game. Every move, everything you do, it's all connected into one grand scheme sort of thing, right? And what's beautiful about this mentality is that when you get, philosophical enough, you get this nice, at least the way that I really enjoy this thought. A lot of people will say this, and it's a little bit corny. I used to think it was a little bit corny to say that, everything is connected, right? But when you really think about it, at least in this manner, you actually realize that there is more truth to that than some corny dialogue line in a movie. That's at least how I feel about it. And what's beautiful about it is that this mentality fits very, very well into programming. Because as you start, as a beginner, you will struggle with just getting the program to work. But you most likely, you're not actually thinking about this. And not in this way, I suppose. Or rather, I will guess that you don't think about it in this way. But every program is just a sequence of steps, and the only difference between your small program and say mine, that at my company, my larger program, and say Google search engine, the only difference is the amount of steps. But it's still just a tree of, call it a tree of steps. Every program works in that fashion. It's just a sequence of events that need to take place in order to create something. And so that's why I feel maybe this is why I enjoy programming so much, because I've naturally always liked to think about things in this way. I really don't focus all that much on the end results. Rather, I value the end results as much as I value the steps it took to get to that point. And that, to me, is a very healthy way to think about not only programming, but life in general. Anything, basically. Because I think that it's important to not only look at the end results, but also to truly appreciate the steps that is required in order for you to see these end results. Because those steps are truly important, and some of them requires even more work than the end results. If you think about it, this road that I'm walking down right now, Do you have any, if just, or maybe you have something even more concrete and better. Just think about these everyday objects that you see around you and just try to imagine how much was required to actually put that thing there. Yeah, I know I'm a bit fussy with you now, and I'm sorry about that, but at least I have found a great deal of value in this mindset when I do software development, because usually it starts the same way. Whenever I sit down at my computer and I'm going to make a tutorial for you guys, or I'm going to start working at my job or something like that, I always start the same way. Okay, so what am I going to build, and what are these steps that I need to take in order for this to work? That's usually how it goes. Have a great day.